Another day, another chance, another way, another dance. Today, I'll be discussing to you all about a new chapter now. Actually, not even a new chapter, but just overall a new topic. So it's gonna be a blog that I'm gonna be creating. Yeah, it's just gonna be a blog, you know, because I'm that type of guy. There's gonna be a blog. It's also gonna be a new book called, you know, it's gonna pretty much gonna be everything that has to do with like beginning Node.expressMongo.pdf. So I'm gonna be beginning with like MongoDB and so on and so forth. So I'm pretty much gonna be creating a blog. So that's what's gonna be happening. And before I begin, discussing chapter one on blogs, I'm gonna have to introduce you to a navigator of mine. His name is Savas. He's gonna be navigating my videos. So welcome, navigator, and thank you for taking the time to navigate my videos. So thank you for that. And yeah, so without further ado, let's begin. Right, okay, Remy. Okay. Alright, so pretty much in our chapter one, what we do is we pretty much goes on the same basis as what we did before. Right, so obviously beginning Node Express Mongo.pdf, that's a book that you should download. So obviously we need to register a new account, right? So you're pretty much gonna be having like a new app, right? An app that you're gonna be building. So what happens is we've got HTML. We're not using EJS or APIs anymore, at least for now. We're pretty much gonna be going back to the basics, right? The basics being HTML, simple HTML, not EJS, and index.js, not main.js. So we're not going to be making use of our main, we're going to be making use of our index.js. So what we have here is HTML files, package.json, our JSON files, JS files, and HTML files. Right, so about.html, contact.html, index.html, not found.html. Right, so what happens is now HTMLs, these are pretty much like our are pretty much our structure for our front end. Right, so it pretty much sets the basis, or the structure for what we see on our front end. So that's what it does, right? So that's what our HTML files does. It's pretty much a lesson that we learned in our normal JavaScript, except now we're making use of Node now. So what happens is we pretty much for now, you know, we press Shift or exclamation mark, then Enter, and then what that gives us. Then what that gives us is our doc type. That's what it gives us. Doc type HTML language, English, heading, our headers, and our body tags, and then our closing tags for like HTML. So that's the stuff that it gives us. And then you've got our contact.html, right? So it's pretty much our our contacts, right? Right. So doc type HTML, HTML language English, headers, bodies, and so on and so forth. Index.html, same thing. So these are pretty much the framework for our front end, right? Whereas, what we have, index.html pretty much sets up the functionality of our front work for our server side. So the client side or the front end, culminates of our HTML, and then then the which the client side, then the server side or the back end, pretty much is pretty much is based on our index.js. So that's what it's based on. So index.js, what we do is we require our index about contact and not found HTML pages by pretty much requiring them via, referencing them or importing them via our variables. We're using const variables. So what const does is it makes sure that the values that you set for our variables, they're the permanent values. And if you change those values, it's going to return an error. So that's pretty much what happens there. Right, so you got our const server equals http.create server. So these are the parameter functions that we have, right? So returns a new instance of server. So it pretty much returns a request listener as a function is automatically added to the request event. Right, so that's pretty much what happens. So our hypertext, so our HTTP or hyper hypertext, yeah, pretty much our protocol, our hypertext protocol, right? We create a server, and then we also have our parameters as well, request and res. We make sure that those parameters are equal to or greater than. We make sure that our res, our HTTP server response, incoming message, and our request equal to or greater than constant log. Then it's going to require or request our URL, which is an incoming message, which is the message that you see in our which is the message that we see in our contacts, right? So that's what we see here, right? So FS, module FS enables interaction with the file system in a way module the standard POSIX positions. So all our node modules, this node modules library stores modules such as this. So you can if alt if statement, if alt if statement. So if request dot URL strict equal operator about, then you're gonna have a res dot end about page. So these are the conditions, the if else statements that pretty much set our conditions for HTML pages. So for about, that's pretty much that's the URL, because you're dealing with the parameter that we're dealing with is the incoming message. But that incoming message is pretty much circled or based around a URL. So this here, after our localhost 3000, that slash about is pretty much gonna go to our URL. So pretty much the same thing here. So else if request a URL strict equal operator contact. So this in our URL or universal, pretty much in our URL after localhost 3000, do that then about, and then it will take us to that parameter that we referencing. Else if request your dot URL strict equal operator contact reset in contact page. Else if request dot URL strict equal operator, that, which pretty much is the default for the res.end homepage, or else res.write-head 44, res.end not found page and stuff. Then server that less than 3000 constant log server running at HTTP localhost 3000. You know what I mean? So we pretty much have a server. Our if else statements, we pretty much sets the standard, pretty much sets the conditions for everything that we've got. And then we got then we got HTTP. So that pretty much requires our HTTP server. You know, and then we've also got FS, which imports our stuff from like our node module at the end of the day. So yeah, that's pretty much what we have. And then what else I did was I ran npm init. So what npm init does is it pretty much installs our dependencies or sets up our dependencies for our project. Right, so that's what happens is all the dependencies. So the name of our project, the name of it, the modules, express, tests, the type of project we're dealing with, the author, the license, the main, and then we get all our dependencies get stored in our package.json. That's where it gets stored, and saved. And then what else I did was I ran my node npm install express. So npm is short for node package modules. Right, so that's a library, the biggest node library in the world. So we ran our installs, our npm install express. So what that does, it installs all the node modules that we need to make use of for our express library, for our express app. So that's what it does. And then as you can see here, all of them get saved in something called packagelog.json. So yeah, that's pretty much what happens. And then, I mean, yeah. And then press OK. Right, and then as you can see, we got our home page. I'm quickly gonna share now. Then I'm gonna reshare again once everything has been debugged and set up and set the way that it needs to be set. So home page. All right. So reload page. Reshare my screen. So on our back end, right, there's no code or div. There's pretty much no div or classes and so on and so forth, right? That's referring to the stuff that we have on our HTML for front end, because our code doesn't have functionality yet. It's just HTML structure. That's all for now, because we're just in like list chapter 1 for a blog. As you can see here, we got our network. There's no throttling because it's uncapped. So we're not gonna run low on our network, right? So it's a localhost status, 200 type documents initiator, size, then time, and so on and so forth. You know, there's nothing. So right, as you can see, we've got our localhost for now, and then you've got our about page. So as you can see here, we've got our about page. If you can actually remember our if else statement that we created, it actually makes a reference, to the page that we've got the condition that's been set. So as you can see here, this is a follow-up from like JavaScript, intro into programming, JavaScript, except, it's based on Node now, right? So we got an else if, so on and so forth, about page, right? About status 200 type documents initiated other, and then yeah, so on and so forth. And then you got a contact page, right? Our contact page. So as you can see here, we got our contact page as well, right? So our if else statements, the if else statement that we have here, allowing the variable server, the permanent variable, the global variable server, allowing its parameters, they come into play here. They all come into play. So yeah, it should equal operator. That means the value has to be exactly as been said in our if else statement. So along along with the fact that it's pretty much saying the condition that our URLs have been made use of in our parameters. Yeah. So that's what the parameters are. It's pretty much the messages that we're making use of, and the messages that we're making use of, and the conditions for those. Not found, not found 4 not found page. So as you can see here, in our debugger,